All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleisher Show, broadcasting live from Judea to the world. You're a part of it wherever you are. Chodesh Tov. It is the new month of Av. Bittersweet on the one hand, the happy new month, a new beginnings. Rosh Chodesh means I call it Rosh Chadash, a new head, new mind that you can get. At the same time, it's Av, which we recall the destruction of two temples and the rejection of the land of Israel by the Jewish people in the desert. So there's definitely a painful side to this month. Today is Rosh Chodesh here in Israel. I am joined by my beloved Malkah Fleisher. Shalom and welcome, Malkah.
Thank you. Shalom. Welcome to me. You.
Thank you very much for welcoming us to your home. And it's Corona time.
Yeah. And it's all kinds of stuff right now.
Yeah, it's all kinds of stuff.
It's the 9 days.
Right.
Because we just started Rosh Chodesh Av, which means the 9-day mourning period in which we mourn between the breaking down, basically, of the walls of Jerusalem all the way through the breaking into the temple and the destruction of the temple by the Romans and by
Babylonians.
The Babylonians.
That's right. And also many bad things happened during this period in Jewish history. The expulsion from Spain, the expulsion from Gush Katif. In Hebron, 1929, the Jews were massacred on the 18th of Av, and they said it was twice Tisha B'Av. That's what they said, 9 times 2. They said it was twice as bad. So there's a lot of that. At the same time, well, actually, let me actually hold on to the bad stuff. Let me actually just focus in on that for a second. Something that I want to tell you, you can believe the next phrase or not believe it, but things go funky and sometimes bad during this period.
Right, true.
So if your stuff, especially your like car, laundry machine, a crack in your house, something like happens, let's the proverbial coffee,
$100 bill on your table, and you knew it was there, and it was definitely there, and now it's gone.
Right. I'll say the proverbial coffee mug. Okay, your proverbial beloved coffee mug that said best mom, best dad in the world, whatever. It fell and it cracked. That is very 9 days. That is a phenomenon that happens. Now,
it's a time of suffering.
I say this for three different reasons. One is that once you know that, it a little bit mitigates the anger, the pain, the frustration. That you know that there's like some stuff that's going to happen.
It's just that time of year.
Right. Two is that even on a deeper level of mitigation, we're taking the breaks, the reverberation of the breaks of the temple. And so if you could appreciate that and say, this cup broke because the temple broke, and I'm feeling the pain, or maybe I'm even lessening the pain by absorbing that shock.
Right.
So that makes you feel a little bit better. And I think that that's actually the deeper meaning of it. What was the third way of seeing it? I don't remember right now what the third way of seeing it is. But the bottom line is that there's pain right now. Oh, the third way is that we're also in a time of rebuilding. And I have Yishai's famous parable of the 9th of Av in our era.
Okay.
It's Yishai's famous parable.
We're ready.
Here's how it goes.
Ready, go.
The parable is there are two, I've said this before on the show, so if you've been a long-time listener, you may remember it. There are two single women in a room. Both are single. Both are unmarried. One, though, and therefore they have the same status as two unmarried women. But one, her husband just died.
God forbid.
And the other one is engaged to be married. So yes, their status is legally the same, but their situation is
different trajectories.
Different situation altogether. And that is the 9th of Av in our time. We live in a time of engagement. We are engaged for that third temple. It's on the way.
Amen.
We're living in that time. We are living in a time of redemption. And so yes, we continue to mourn, but with a forward-looking towards rebuilding. And I want to tell you, in the last few days, here in the land of Israel, you and I have been driving to places. We drove to the Kinneret with the family. And what we saw, and what we saw also yesterday when we drove to Yerushalayim, I went to a skin doctor just to do the yearly
checkup.
Our amazing skin doctor, by the way, in Har Nof, who's not only Dr. Shamroth, who's not only a great skin doctor, but has written a whole book about the calculation of the month in the Jewish calendar. How to calculate the month with the moon cycle and the whole thing. We're talking astronomy, mathematics.
So we told him we were coming, and we were like, Dr. Shamroth, get a book ready.
That's right. And I got one of those books.
And we bought one of his books.
And I can tell you, after reading it, Didn't understand the damn thing. But what is the line, Malkah? Did not understand one word.
One word.
What movie is that from, friends? What movie is that from?
I've read this book.
I have read this Torah. Didn't understand a word. Okay. So
write in.
Yeah, write in hashtag. Tell me what you and maybe we'll get you. Can we get them some kind of prize for that, Malkah?
Well, I have to think of it. What should we give them?
I don't know.
We'll give them something.
We'll think of it off air, but you'll get something. If anything, our appreciation. Anyway, that's the parable. We're living in a time. Oh, so we're driving all around the country, and what are we seeing? Building.
Tons
Baruch
of cranes.
Hashem. Baruch Hashem. So much beautiful building. So much just power of the rebirth of the Jewish people in the land of Israel. It is incredible. It is so powerful and so obvious that the land is being rebuilt, and you could tell mountains are being cleared, which is a process. You know, they break them into little boulders, and then they break the boulders into little boulders, and and they pulverize them into dust. And you know what? Like, you could see that the mountains, like,
yeah, it's not sad.
It's like
it's happy. It's like, let's go.
Now, I've said this before years ago. Also, there's a midrash that says that why is the land of Israel hilly and mountainous? So that when the Jewish people come, it'll flatten out and make room for all of them. Ladies and gentlemen, for 2,000 years, that medrash was a parable. Who knew what they meant was
it will actually be flattened out.
Right, we will flatten the mountains
and
to
put
make
houses
room
and nice roads
for the Jews in the land of Israel.
Well, Yishai, it's good that you're talking about this actually, because I just saw a news story and it's really, really hot off the presses. And we didn't even talk about it. You had no idea I was going to talk about this on the show. The headline of the article I'm reading says, "Huge Kingdom of Judah government complex found stone's throw from U.S. Embassy."
Get out.
Among the 2,700-year-old finds, 120 inscribed seal impressions on jars at storage facility holding food collected as taxes for King Hezekiah and Manasseh in First Temple, Jerusalem.
Dang.
Basically, they did a huge excavation, the Israel Antiquities Authority, just 3 kilometers, which is 1.8 miles outside the old city. They did a dig right near the new U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, which is the old U.S. consulate in Jerusalem. And they found, like I said, 120 jar handles, indicating that the location had been used as a storage and tax center. Prevalent among the stamp inscriptions is Lamulk.
No, Lamelech. The Lamelech.
Lamulk.
L-M-A-K-H.
Lamelech, or
That's
belonging to the king. A way of marking that the foodstuff stored in the jars had been tithed to the Judean ruler.
That is what we found in Hebron as well. That's how I know about the Lamelech seals, the L-M-K-H. That's what they call it in English. You can look it up on Wikipedia. But we found 5 of those in Hebron as well.
Wow.
And also for the period of Hezekiah.
Well, it's interesting because they say here, the IAA says that they have like over 2,000 similar seals discovered at excavations that's really changed the way that they think about administration and tax collection in the Kingdom of Judah. IAA excavation co-directors.
What you're saying is that there's 2 things that are constants in this world, like death. We know about
death and taxes.
But taxes, there they are.
Right. So one of the things that's interesting
Malkah.
is we're very close, thank God, to a lot of the people who are influential in the city of David, Ir David.
Yes.
The place where it's believed that King David had his second capital. Basically, his first capital was in Hebron, but really his main capital in Jerusalem, and the capital that he's known for. But it turns out that the Ir David zone wasn't the only area where government stuff was happening, and that's what they're basically discovering. They said, at the site we excavated, there are signs that governmental activity managed and distributed food supplies not only for shortage, but administered agricultural surplus, amassing commodities and wealth. And they say that this is one of the most significant discoveries from the period of the kings in Jerusalem made in recent years.
That's awesome. Just to make it clear.
And it's nice, actually, that they're reporting this, I think, now for the Rosh Chodesh Av.
Wow. Great story, Malkah.
To give us a sense of what was going on in the final days of the Kingdom of Judah, and a sense of what life was like in Jerusalem as we try hard to get back to, the new, like Alt Neuland, Herzl's Alt Neuland, like new old land. Like we're trying to do things the old way, but we're also trying to do it in our new way.
And we're talking about 600 years before the advent of Islam altogether. I like to say the invention of Islam altogether. So we're talking about 2,000 years ago. And here we are living in the same places. Those seals are in Hebrew. Okay,
they're in Hebrew, and they're being dated to the first temple period.
Okay, so this leads me right to the next story, Malkah.
All
okay?
right.
I want you to hear this tweet that I wrote this week. Okay, I wrote this as a response to Peter Beinart. He writes, he quotes an article.
What are you talking about?
Peter Beinart wrote this article calling for binationalism. In other words,
two-state is over.
Right, and now just let's have the Arabs vote us out of existence by giving them...
Let's have a one-state. Everyone has the same kind of citizenship, and everyone has voting rights, and they can vote for it to be a Jewish state, not a Jewish state.
Right, and even he admits that it's bye-bye Jewish state per se. And he writes a quote. He writes, critics may charge that this vision is utopian.
Who writes this?
Beinart.
Beinart himself, okay.
Yet it is no more idealistic than the assertion that all men are created equal. And then he has this link to a Guardian article. In any case, I wrote, Israel is a defensive...
This is in your article, or is this in Twitter?
Twitter. I write to him, Israel is a defensive ethnic national state, created to protect the Jewish tribe on Jewish tribal land. The mostly Arab and Muslim region lacks any semblance of equality for us Jews, among other people as well. And therefore, like the Kurds, we have an independent, autonomous country. Pretty innocuous. It says we have Jewish tribal land.
Yeah.
We're a defensive country. We're an ethnic national state. We're not here to respect the equalities of all mankind.
Not that they're lesser people.
Of course not.
That's not what we're talking about.
Of course not. But this country is not set up to protect other ethnic minorities or other majorities. It's here it's set up to protect our people, our ethnicity, just like many other countries in the world, like Poland or Japan, etc., Hungary, and of course the 22 Arab countries around us, which are ethnic national states. This is by the way, the unbelievably frustrating argument of Beinart. It's like, wait a minute, you are asserting this equality for all mankind, yet you don't make zero demands on the Arab countries around us to have any kind of semblance of equality, not just for us, the Jews, which are a persecuted minority, but also there is no civil rights, decent rights, voting rights in the Arab countries around us. So how come you're making us into a Western liberal country when the other countries are nothing like that at all, and you have no demands on them? Anyway, so I wrote what I wrote.
Yeah.
These are some of the responses to my little tweet.
Okay.
How is building racial colonies in other people's lands defensive? As in, but I said to you, it's Jewish tribal land.
Yes, you're a thief and you're a racist. Okay.
Next, that was from Eugenia. This one from Madelaire. He says, and you have no semblance of equality for Palestinians. Kurds don't rule over other people. Kurds don't rule over other people.
No one's asking Kurds to get all up in their country.
Right. Exactly. P.S. Where the Kurds are ruled by the Iranians, the Turks, the Syrians, they're persecuted. So they got conglomerated into a little area.
Right, teensy little place. And they're like, we're just taking this teensy place.
Okay. This guy, Geroid, sounds like hemorrhoid. I don't know. He says, Jewish tribal land is not an international legal category. And holy books do not provide rights under international law, nor justify the abuse of another people in violation of their rights. The bottom line is, like, I didn't argue in international law. In international law, I have a great argument. San Remo, the mandate for Palestine, I was on a podcast. I listed five loci of Jewish rights: land purchase, defense of war, beautification, international recognition, and religious authority, if you believe in that. But in any case, he's like going back to the international law thing. Your political ideology, continues Hemorrhoid. He says, your political ideology has led you to committing to an illiberal form of Zionism. Yes. It's not meant to be liberal for others. It's meant to be liberal for us. It's meant to defend our peoples. Beinart seeks a form compatible with human rights, law, and values. Yeah, right. Like he's seeking, is that what he seeks? Or does he seek to totally exterminate the Jewish state by giving people who have tried to overrun us and destroy us many times?
What do you mean have?
Continuously
They're still talking about it now.
Right.
You know that Hamas and Fatah set a date for a big sulha.
Look, I don't like you and you don't like me, but we both hate the Jews.
Yeah, so let's get together on this. That's is literally what their meeting is about.
That's so nice. At least I'm happy that we're bringing people together. Your form, continues Hemorrhoid. He says, your form has been tainted by prejudice and should be contested. Fear is no justification for abusing others. No, it's not. That's why we are not abusing others. That's why we created an ethnic national state on our land, on our tribal land. And we're not abusing others, okay? And we're the opposite. We're a light of liberty in this region. Finally, says J.M. Parker, I think it's a false name, says, you sound more like a bigot trying to justify their racism. Too late. We see you for what you are.
Yeah.
And it's like
Yishai, we see you for what you are.
You don't see me for what I am.
I see you for what you are.
No, they don't see me for what I am because
they really don't.
They really don't.
And they don't want to, and they never will.
Right.
And it doesn't matter. You could speak until you're blue in the face.
I'm gonna just write back.
It's not about logic and it's not about argumentation.
Right. Anyway, there's more of what we always talk about, which is the narrative war out there.
It's so
the problem with the narrative war is it used to be localized in the bad guys. Now it's diffuse. Like every bad guy, every
person feels himself to be an activist,
right? Exactly.
On social media, which is awesome,
which
right?
is also laudable.
Which is
right.
really cool that social media has empowered people like that.
Right.
On the other hand, it's really horrible and everyone's so angry and everyone is so accusatory.
That leads me to another thing, Malkah. Thank you for saying that. Today, you know what? Now I remember what was the real third thing I wanted to say about Rosh Chodesh Av. Rosh Chodesh Av is a time of mourning, but it is also the yortzeit of Aharon HaKohen, Aaron the priest.
Moses' brother.
Moses' older brother. But really the high priest. And he has his own set of values that when we think of Aaron, we think of those values. And that in simple terms, it's Ahavat Yisrael. The love of the Jewish people, to love the Jewish people, and to love one another, and to find a peace, to find a way for peace, to cut corners for peace amongst lovers, amongst people who should love one another. Not finding peace with your enemies, which you should not. You should fight your enemies, but there's many times where we end up fighting. We're not fighting enemies, but we're fighting ourselves. And I must say that I think that for the next 9 days, I think we should really try to focus on the Aharonic. Don't be ironic, Malkah. Be Aharonic, okay? Just a little bit of Ahavat Yisrael, a little bit of space for another. Last night we lit a candle, and Malkah, you have a little candle holder with two hands.
Well, that's not mine, actually. That's Leah's.
Oh.
Our daughter. She got it for her bat mitzvah, and then she lent it out to us, and we've been using it.
Well, that is very nice of Leah, who is sitting right here. Hi, Leah. And
doing summer homework. Tfu. She's
doing math homework.
Bli Ayin Hara.
I know, but it makes me wonder where she came from exactly. Okay, but these candle holder, that's the hands of the priestly blessing.
Right?
And it really made me feel very special. So a little bit of love, and in this time, this loveless period. Wait, just let me say this phrase.
Yes,
this phrase. This is a loveless period. Do you agree with that?
What do you mean, the 9 days?
This whole Corona time and protesting.
No, I would not agree with that.
No, good. I'm glad you're pushing back, Malkah.
I would not agree with that. What do you mean a loveless time?
I'm talking about on the internet, these.
What does the Corona have to do with anything?
I'm talking
about the people who are angry, and it doesn't matter what time period.
It's just not a time where the word love is
I don't know.
Is out there that much.
I don't know. I think that there's good people out there, and I think that they are showing love to each other.
Good.
And while you're talking about doing Ahavat Yisrael, all of us could use a boost always about showing people love and being nice to people. But I'm not sure I have a big problem with that. I think that there are people who do have a big problem with that, and I think a lot of those people are the people who hate Israel. I'll be honest with you, and not to conflate everything together, not to intersectional the politics with the Jewish values necessarily or anything. But I do not feel that the people in the Zionist camp have a love problem. generally speaking. On the micro level, I'm sure that there are people who are rude to each other and, you know, whatever. And we could all always be working on our interpersonal relations. But I think that, like, on the whole, the people who are showing like their bile and their rage are the anti-Zionist people who are just kind of anti. It just feels like they're very, very anti. And
right.
And
if you're anti-Zionist, you are probably angry. That is. Do you agree with that formula?
Yeah, there's not a lot of like loving anti-Zionists, like good mood anti-Zionists.
No, because really the real truth, the deep truth is that if you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Israel, you're probably anti-God, you're probably anti-religion.
Although you got tons of these, like, you got tons of people who would espouse themselves to be extremely, extremely religious, Yishai, who call themselves anti-Zionist because they're very angry at different policies of Israel, and they feel that Israel discriminates against ultra-Orthodox people, or that Israel has anti-Jewish policies.
Their problem is that they're missing the big picture. That's their problem. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes you miss the big picture. You zoom in, you see a lot of crud, and you do have to be very smart these days. You got to know how to watch the news. You got to know how to watch the news, and you got to know when to turn off the news.
I also want to say, and this is something we've said about the army before, not that Haredim per se have to serve in the army, like that's like something we're super lacking or something like that. I feel like the army is mostly, I don't know, handling itself with the people that it has. But I always say to myself, like, you don't want the Haredim to serve in the army, like the Haredi leaders.
The ultra-Orthodox.
The ultra-Orthodox. But if you guys would flip and be like, you know what? We've changed our mind. We're sending 50,000 people to the army next year. Then it would change everything. It's like you have people who are like anti-Zionists because they feel that Israel isn't living up to what it should be. And I can respect that on some level. Okay. I can respect that on some level. And I think that all religious people deal with certain disappointments about when Israel is not living up to its potential and doing what its mission is to do. But I would say, like, instead of going, I'm anti-Zionist, you go, I'm running for office, right? Like I'm jumping into politics. I'm gonna take this job and this job and this job. I'm gonna apply for this position. And I'm gonna, like, our community is just gonna take over this thing. Instead of shrinking away and saying, like, I don't like Israel because of X, you go, I don't like Israel because of X, and therefore I'm going to lean in harder. I'm going to, like, participate more.
I didn't know we were going to get into this topic, but my one comment on this is that I think it's really changing. I think ultra-Orthodox people are much more into living in the state of Israel, being part of it. But I'll tell you what their big contention is in part a brand. They don't subscribe to the brand of blue and white and Ben Gurion. That's not their brand. They have a different brand, and therefore they have different lingo and different things that are important to them. And so in many ways, I see ultra-Orthodox today as being excellent citizens of the state of Israel and very much contributing to holding the fort on moral levels, bringing more Torah into the land, and certainly more children into the land. God bless them. And so
they bring some crucial, critical values and
right and
like
and
demands
culture,
into this society that if we didn't have them, I don't know what we would do.
That's what I'm saying. And the airport has when we use the airport, when we will once again use the airport
one day,
you know, it's got a lot of kosher food because there's a lot of ultra-Orthodox travelers, et cetera, et cetera. So I have come to the realization that people don't all want to be locked into the same brand. And sometimes the state is a very strong brand, okay? And its way is a strong brand. And so we have to know how to be flexible to have people on our team that don't talk, look, and do they don't wave the same exact flag,
right,
but they're on the team.
Right.
Speaking of that, Malkah, I want to go just to one more topic, which is that last week I said that I would, oh boy, sorry.
Wow.
Before I go to this, last week I said I would tell a story. Last week I asked people if they want me to tell the story about buying books on Meiser money. So I got a lot of people who wrote to me saying they want to hear that story. Before I do that, I want to say today's show is dedicated to a very dear friend of ours who passed away. I think it's 8 years ago today, already now. But yes, 8 years ago, our good friend Leah Goldman passed away.
Right.
and was really a dear friend of ours. And her husband, Shmuel Goldman, is sponsoring today's show in her memory, which is in itself a big honor. One of the greatest honors of my whole life.
That is leaning in, by the way. Leah Goldman, Zichronah Livracha, was the kind of person who would lean in.
Oh my gosh.
She and her family had a dream. They were going to move to the north of Israel. And they were going to like live a life that was like natural and with a good air and just go up to this beautiful scenic place in Israel. And they went up there and they went to one community and they went to another community and they went to another community until they could find the place that was their forever home.
Yeah.
And they settled in a place called Moshav Yonatan in the Golan. At the time, Moshav Yonatan was an agricultural community with lots of nice Israelis in it and a nice place to raise your kids and a great shul and just everything really good. But Leah wasn't content with that. She wasn't content with her contentment. She knew that she had found something special and she wanted to share it. And so she really took it upon herself to really push out the message of the Golan and get people excited, especially in the English-speaking community, because when they moved to the Golan, it was really primarily, regular Israelis who had kind of drifted up to the Golan Heights. And she decided that she's going to be the kind of person who like pushes it. And she took it upon herself as her mission. And she got herself a Gmail account, gogolan@gmail.com. And she would encourage people to come to the Golan. And she ended up in her town becoming, I don't know what the word is for it, but like the contact person for people who want to come up and move to Moshav Yonatan. And because of her, basically, and all of her passion and her husband Shmuel's passion, they opened up like a new massive section of the Moshav and like tens, I think, of houses. Beautiful, gorgeous.
Houses.
And people, living in the Jerusalem area is so special. But what's interesting about living in the Golan area is that it's a lot more free in the sense that there's a lot more opportunity to like build your dream house and to spread out and to live a little bit more of that life that maybe if you could relate it to like the American country, but not the country because it's not that rural, but just like much more out in nature and spread out and less tense. And because of her, like dozens of people, dozens of families at least, moved up to the north of Israel and moved up to the Golan. And today, even though Leah has passed, Shmuel and his family are living up in the Golan. And
Shmuel got remarried to Bat Sheva.
Shmuel got remarried to the amazing Bat Sheva. And now they live there in their community. And like on one side of the street is like all these Israelis, basically. And on the other side of the street is like all these English speakers.
You mean new Israelis?
I mean, yes. Okay. We are all Israelis.
That's right.
No matter what language you're speaking, no matter what color you are, no matter where your port of origin, we're definitely all just as Israeli as the other. But I think you know what I mean. I'm talking about Sabas.
I think you mean port of embarkation, because our port of origin is here also.
Yes, that's right. Fair.
Okay, our port of embarkation to come home.
Right. So not that Leah saw something lacking per se in Israeli society, but she saw an opportunity.
Yes.
And she saw an opportunity that she could share with others, and she could have just kept it to herself. But instead, she grabbed it and she was like, everyone has to be able to get a part of this. And they were in touch with Nefesh B'Nefesh and trying to help people come to the north. And they raised a ton of awareness. And in their merit, a lot of people built beautiful homes and are living beautiful lives up in the Golan.
That's right. And that means that Israel's got a better grip on the Golan Heights. That means that land is welcoming us. We very much miss you, Leah. And your neshama is important to us and you're with us. And it's an honor to dedicate today's show to Leah Goldman. And also, I knew her as Lisa Height in high school, but she became Leah Goldman. She was in my grade in high school. And back in the old country, in our port of embarkation. And so, yeah, very powerful thing. I also had the dubious, but on the other hand, great honor of speaking at her a funeral.
Right.
Dubious in the sense that you don't want to speak at a friend's funeral.
No.
But if you got to do it, then you get a chance to do it. And And we miss her very much, and it's an honor to dedicate the show.
Her neshama should have an aliyah.
Amen.
And hopefully her beautiful spirit is still getting stuff done.
Yes.
On the next level.
And may she see nachas from her children.
Amen.
Growing up well in this land.
Amen.
So now to the story. People ask me about to tell the story about buying books on your tithe and your Meiser money.
Right.
So I said to you,
start with the mitzvah of Maser. What is that?
You're supposed to give a tenth of your earnings, of your profits. Good. Of your profits to charity. This is in line with the idea that you're supposed to tithe to the priests and the Levites. So last week we were talking about buying books, and you threw out, I don't remember which books. We were talking about Art Scroll. We were talking about
if people really,
if you're lacking in funds
right now, and you can't buy a book, so
I recommended. I told people don't do this. Don't buy. It is legal, but don't buy a book on your Meiser money. The story is that one time there was this cool book about Hilchot Shabbat, the laws of the Sabbath, and
with pictures,
and it was neat.
Do we even know where that book is today?
Absolutely, I know exactly where it is on the shelves. It's right over there now. And here's the story: we bought this book, and we bought it on Meiser money. That was the one book I bought on
because we had just learned this law.
We just
you can buy the book. So we're like, okay.
Wait, I forgot to add. And when you buy a book on tithe, if anybody wants to borrow it, you can't kind of say no because it becomes like a library thing. It's like a charity. It's like you have this book on charity.
You now have a book gemach.
Right. It's you didn't exactly own it. It's like a charity that you have this book if anybody needs it. Anyway, we bought this book. 3 days later, somebody comes for Shabbos, and the person says,
Ooh, nice book.
Out of all of our books. He goes, can I borrow that? It was like,
yes,
you can. That's the law. This book promptly got lost.
Like, we didn't see the guy also. It's not a person we see very often. We didn't see him, and like months go by, and then years go by.
And then I said to the dude, I'm like, dude, where's that book? He's like, it's gone. So I'm like, oh.
Okay, fine.
I'm like, that'll learn you. That'll learn you. Don't buy books on Meiser. Anyway, we had a friend also passed away.
Several years ago.
Rabbi Yaakov
Shmarya.
That's right. And he had a bookstore in Beit El of rare books. I went to that bookstore one time. I'm looking. I see that book. I'm like, that's great. I open up the book. It's got my name in it. Okay, in the bookstore.
What?
I said,
there you are.
I said,
we found you.
We found you. I said, where? How did this get to him? And that guy happened to have been at his house.
Right. We were mutual acquaintances.
Like Corona, we traced the darn thing. In any case, so that's I got the book back gratis. I didn't have to pay for it because it was mine. Or it was Meiser.
It was not. Yeah,
I should have probably paid for it, or maybe I did pay for it, thinking like, okay, now I can own it outright. In any case,
he may have gifted it to you.
He may have. But the bottom line is that that you got to be very careful when you buy books on Maser. They're liable to do the thing that they're supposed to be doing. So if you want a book, if you want it in your shelves, then buy it outright. In any case, folks, Malkah, I want to really thank you for being with me, and I want to adjourn everybody.
Yes.
Adjure.
Well, I don't know what
I
want
to get everybody to do something.
Adjure.
I think it's adjure.
I think you should use a totally different word.
I'd like to
get people to do something.
Yeah, I'd like everybody to hop on and get yourself some Israeli wine by going to israelwines.com.
Although you're not supposed to drink wine during the 9 days. Just a little heads up.
Yes, that's true. True. But maybe if you order it now,
Yeah, by the time you get it,
we'll
you can look at it for a while.
Although
you could have it on Shabbat.
Yes.
You can have it on Shabbat, wine and meat.
That's right. On
Enjoy
Shabbat,
yourself.
During these 9 days. But the other thing I asked everybody is to please write to me to tell me how their orders worked out for them. And I haven't received an email like that
right,
yet.
That's okay.
So get to it, folks. Order and write me an email. Check out, of course, Hebron. That's home base. That's Mamas and Papas. That's where the forefathers and mothers are buried. HebronFund.org makes all the difference in the world right now during this Corona period. We could so use your help, and you could use the help of giving a little bit of tzedakah. So check out HebronFund.org and sign up for our virtual tours and our our continuing effort to beautify the Marat HaMachpelah and our support of the Jewish families there, including securing them. A lot of work there. So that's HebronFund.org.
Still a prayer quorum happening there at the Tomb of the Patriarchs and Matriarchs.
You bet.
So it's not like totally shut down.
That's right. And of course, Tchelet, Tekhelet. Oh, and both for Tchelet and for Israel Wines, just type in coupon code Yishai.
Ooh, coupon. Okay,
and
you want them at Sia.
You'll get the big bucks off.
Yes.
All right?
I just want to remind all you people regarding the Tchelet, regarding the Tzitzit, that the month of Elul is coming right up, which is the month of Teshuvah, the month in which we prepare our souls for Rosh Hashanah, the brand new year, and all kinds of judgments are made regarding our future in the upcoming year. And so it's good to have your religious gear all set for you.
That's right. Absolutely. Elul time is coming.
It's a good time to, it's a good time to buy that book, and it's a good time to buy that tzitzit, and it's a good time to do something for yourself that's going to help you renew that spiritual energy.
Yes.
So you can charge ahead.
Yes. And also, lastly, I want to recommend that this Elul, we learn together Eim HaBanim Smecha.
Oh,
okay,
intense.
the Eim HaBanim Smecha, written by Rabbi Teichtal. Rabbi Moshe Lichtman has an abridged version of it, which is very useful. Rabbi Moshe Lichtman, I think he was on somebody else's show on the network, the Land of Israel network, thelandofisrael.com, which is our sponsor network. I want you to check out the rest of the shows on the network, but get yourself the book now, Eim HaBanim Smecha, so that we could learn it together over the month of Elul and get ready for a new year. Folks, those of you who are locked out of the Land of Israel, that's just an illusion. Okay? There is a ways to connect with the Land of Israel today more than ever before. Through the shows, through the tchelet, through the wine, through the love, through the prayer, through the pictures, through the videos. There's a million ways to be more and more connected. Let's use this time that has, on the one hand, caused us to be more distant from one another. Let's use the tools that have been given to us to come closer to one another. Malkah?
I also want to offer up this week's hashtag.
Yes.
If I may. We haven't discussed it, so I'm just blurting it out.
Go ahead.
I say this. I would like to see some emails this week about what would, if you could be here in Israel, or if you're in Israel and everything was open, what would be your dream Israel vacation? Hashtag Israel vacation.
Nice.
I want to hear about the good stuff that you would do. Keep it short, and if it's good, we'll read it out on the air next week.
Right. And
that way people can during the show, we can close their eyes. They can do what we do in our house called imagination vacation.
That's right.
We do this with the kids. I want to tell you guys about imagination vacation for a second, which is you take your kids on an imaginary vacation where they have to close their eyes. Here is the part my kids like the best every single time. We've been to all kinds of places. We've been to the mountains. We've been to the beach. We've been to outer space. We've been to all kinds of stuff in imagination vacation. But here's the part they like the best. You go to them like this. You go, okay, kids, now we're going to the grocery store, and I hand all of you 100 shekels. Or it could be dollars in your case. I hand you 100 shekels, and you're allowed to buy whatever you want for snacks. And we'll just buy it. And their faces, their eyes have to be closed because it's like a pre-bedtime activity. And their faces, they're smiling from ear to ear as they're running through the grocery store, picking out whatever they want. So I'm giving you a chance to go through the grocery store and tell us what would be your dream vacation in Israel if you could be here right now.
All right, fabulous. Malkah Fleisher, thank you so much for joining me on the Yishai Fleisher Show here on the Land of Israel Network. Check out thelandofisrael.com. Check out my website, YishaiFleisher.com. And, of course, hit the donate button. Give a little bit. Let's build Israel together. Let's keep broadcasting Israel together. And lastly is that Rabbi Mike Feuer is next. on the show. And so stay tuned for that. Lots of love. Lots of blessings from the Land of Blessings. More great stuff is on the way. So stay tuned, stay strong, and stay connected. And shalom.
Choose wisely what we plant in our minds. Choose life, and let's make this week a work of art. It's why we're here.
Last week on the Land of Israel Fellowship, we discussed the Judean Inner Ways, the biblical GPS system for your soul.
In the name of this fellowship, and in the name of all of Israel, as a testimony to the power you have invested in this global community, trying to fulfill your vision of a house of prayer for all nations, for all believers.
Join Jeremy Gimpel and Ari Abramowitz for this exclusive study group live every Sunday on Zoom. To join the Land of Israel Fellowship, click on thelandofisrael.com/fellowship.
All right, folks, you are listening to the Yishai Fleisher Show, broadcasting here on Facebook, on YouTube, and on the Land of Israel Network. Shalom and welcome, everybody. We have a great show lined up for you, and we have with us our beloved Rabbi Mike Feuer. Rabbi Mike, welcome to the program.
Oh, Shalom Yishai, it's good to see you.
It's good to see you. It's good to be seen, lirot ulehiraot, here live. And I want to welcome all the folks that are going to be joining us on the live stream. You can definitely leave your comments, and I will get to your comments throughout the show. So everybody, welcome. And if you're outside of the Land of Israel and you wish you were here, then this is the small way in which we're going to kind of connect you and bring you into the land. And today is also a very special day here in the Land of Israel. It is Rosh Chodesh Av. So happy Rosh Chodesh. As I always say, Rosh Chodesh also means Rosh Chadash. Okay, it's a time for a new head. It's time to get a new perspective, a new way of thinking. And it's also the yortzeit of Aaron. And I actually had the great merit to visit the tomb of Aaron with my mom many years ago. We were in Jordan, and we were with a Bedouin and with donkeys. You can't get up there with camels to that spot. You gotta donkey it up. It needs a little bit more nimble of a. Well, camels have plenty of oomph, but they're not. They're not as nimble in these like tight passages. And we went up there. It is an incredible sight. It is an incredible sight. The tomb of Aaron. It overlooks the whole Arava in southern Israel, and it's purported to be. It's got a good tradition. It's called Jabal Aharun. That's what they call it, the mountain of Aaron. In today found in the kingdom of Jordan, or what we like to call here euphemistically Ever Hayam. The East Bank, correct? The East Bank. There you go. So that was really good times. And he's a very special character that I don't think that we always kind of take time to think about. This character of Aaron, who
classic overshadowed brother,
right? Overshadowed brother, and even misrepresented by Spielberg in what's that movie called, Prince of Egypt? A little misrepresented.
How did he get represented?
He was a bit rougher than he was actually a little bit the opposite of who he is, which is this incredible lover and of the Jewish people. And also when Moses, when we actually meet Aaron for the first time, and he hears that Moses has received this prophecy, he comes at him with joy and he's happy for his younger brother. He's got no jealousy.
It's an archetype of what it means to be happy, actually.
Right. An amazing person, Aaron, and one whose like greatest mistake, I like to think about this, whose greatest mistake was the golden calf. But if you think about the golden calf, like what kind of mistake was it? It was a mistake where like he went towards the will of the people to
right.
calm them, to placate them, to find to.
Every Mida has its cool, right? Every quality has its sort of corrupt expression, and Aaron gave the people what they wanted. He understood their need, and gave them what they wanted and what they needed, and it if you read closely in the text, went quite a bit further than he intended it to.
Right, that's right. I like to think about that moment is that the truth is that Moses is this very, we have a Hebrew word for it, which is dugri, which is very straight talking, cut and dried. Right. As in he says to the two Jews are striking one another. So he says to the guy who's the evil one, he says to him, Rasha, lama takerecha. Hey, bad guy, why would you hit your brother? It's very, very forward, very truthful, and he represents capital T truth. It's Moses.
Yeah. Moshe is always locked and loaded. Just remember that.
Right. He's locked and loaded.
He's not messing around.
He's not messing around, and he's not giving you what you want to hear. And he's the opposite of what Aaron is, which is a diplomat.
Yes.
Which is a diplomat. Somebody who can say it in a gentle way, bring you on board.
Bring two sides together.
He's the negotiator. He's the diplomat. And that doesn't mean that it's fake. It's not fake.
God forbid.
But it is maybe polished and maybe coated with honey just a tad in order to.
And as you said, if Moshe's the capital T truth, that was also his failing, because it was very difficult for Moshe to relate to the reality of the people, something that I would love to speak toward when we get into the Parsha and in the sort of revisiting of the story of spies that we see in this week's Parsha, which is so fascinating and I think indicative of the kilkul, that sort of like corruption of Moshe's absolutism in its inability to understand other people's fear. So Aaron, on the flip side, is the small T truth. He gets it. He says, people don't argue for nothing. There's aspects of truth in what each one is saying. Now, they're small T truths, so they're not able to recognize that if you put the two together, you might actually get further. So that was his art form, to really bring people together around the fact that their partial truths would often make a greater whole.
Right. So the way I conceive of as the sin of the golden calf is actually when Moses goes up to heaven, to the top of Mount Sinai, so he's with God, and that's a place that he's comfortable with. Yep. So capital T truth is with capital T truth, and he's up there. And Aaron, who is the diplomat and who likes to massage a little bit to as you just explained, to find everybody's truths, he's left with the people. When those two forces are separated, that's when there's going to be a problem. And what happens is that the people say, we see that Moses doesn't want to come down to us. He doesn't want to come down to the rabble. And then in
all honesty, if you were up there with God, how quick would you be to come home?
Right, especially if you're a very holy man like Moses. And that's the way they perceive him. They perceive him as otherworldly than to them. But Aaron, at that point, without that capital T pillar and more with the people, so he's going to go towards them, and in that case, in a faulty manner, in a manner that God is displeased with. But I think that the displeasure is not at Aaron per se; it's at the separation of these two, of the tension of these two, the dialogue between these two energies, which is capital T truth and diplomatic truth. And when they're together, when there's two forces like Voltron, when these two forces are together, these.
You really just go there.
These two lions come together.
They come together.
Voltron. Right. But when they're separated, they're weak.
So what I hear you saying is that Aaron loses his anchor when Moshe's not around, and Moshe loses his bridge when Aaron's not around.
Very good.
Right?
Very good.
So I think that both of those play themselves out in the very painful failures that each one has.
The first time that I even ever heard that there's a Torah of Aaron was at the Levine family in Teaneck. Ezra Halevi, but his father, Buzzy Levine, Leah Levine. They're like 60s hippies who are still very much there. Yes, yes. And Buzzy Levine has a guitar store in Teaneck, and he's like really still lives there. And they were like, dude, don't you know about the Torah of Aaron?
It's a whole nother level, brother.
Right. And I didn't know. I was like, what are you talking about? There's Moses. That's
the Torah of Moses.
Seriously. Some people say it's a dat and it's a chaim. That's another way to understand it. It's a dat is like knowledge and truth, and it's a chaim is how to live it with the people. And these two forces, go ahead.
Yeah, and Eitz dat is also about distinction and drawing of lines, and Eitz chaim is an organic whole.
Very just like you said.
Yeah.
So there you go. So today is the yortzeit of Aaron, and I just want to say something about this yortzeit. It's one of the yortzeits that we actually have in the biblical text.
Yeah.
Okay. It says when he passed away. We know the date that he passed away. I think that's important. Kind of. Yeah. I think it says something to us. It says like mark this day. Mark this day.
We work out Moshe's date because we get at the beginning of the book of Devarim when he began, but we don't actually get the day at the end. But with Aaron, it's explicit.
Right. It's explicit. That's right. We know the passing date of Moshe Rabbeinu, but that is our tradition. And a powerful one, but there's something very powerful when the Torah says to you, this day, this is what happens. So that's that. I also want to say, before we go on, speaking of passing away, today's show is dedicated to Leah Goldman, a mutual friends of both of ours. Shmuel Goldman dedicates today's show to Leah Goldman. I already talked about it in the first half with Malkah, but I want to say it again now. A good friend, Leah Goldman, who I actually knew from high school by the name of Lisa Height. She was in my grade, and I
met her under the same name.
Really, long time ago.
A long time ago, I was
at
Ben-Gurion University. Yeah, where she was the youngest. She was pretty much high school age, but she was there when we were all in college. That was kind of the way that Leah was. She was always looking out of herself. She
was always friendly with the older kids. It was always like
she was also just the type to charge out front. You know Absolutely. What I mean? This is not a woman that stayed behind and let other people do the work.
Yeah, one of the things that always bothers me about her death is that, and I said this at her funeral, it was not like her. She was so vivacious, so full of life, and to this day, I'm always like, that doesn't add up to me, little old me, how to understand that.
But I guess know what her soul is doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it with Malkah, but she was very instrumental in bringing more and more people to the Golan Heights. She is survived by her father, by her brother and sister, and by her husband, and by 5 children. And so we really want to bless them. Shmuel got remarried to the wonderful Batsheva, and we really want to bless their families that have also melded together 2 big families to continue to be successful. I'm sure that you're being blessed by Leah.
Amen.
And we miss Leah Goldman very much, and we wish her neshama and aliyah.
Amen.
I also want to say that related to that somehow, in any case, it's related in radio logic, is that yesterday the judgment came down for the murderer of Ari Fuld.
Ari Fuld, yeah,
that's right, and it's a life imprisonment for the 16. He was at the time 16 and a half year old terrorist who struck down Ari Fuld, who I knew very well as well, and really was murdered just a few kilometers down the road here. Good people are struck down, some by disease and others by terror. But at the same time, my good friend Bobby Pittenger and his family were just blessed this week with a brand new baby boy. I don't know the name yet. Was the name announced? I didn't catch that yet.
Yeah.
But we want to wish you the Pittenger family, a big fat mazal tov.
Amen.
And lots of blessings. And this is a family that loves Torah and loves Eretz Yisrael. And are strongly connected. So we wish the new boy to have a hatzlacha, to go into Torah, chupan, maasim tovim, all the good things.
Hey.
All right, good. What else? Today is also Rosh Chodesh, as we said, Rosh Chodesh, and we're starting a new book. Now, you and I, because of my fault, I think I missed broadcasting with you last week, so I apologize to everybody. No big deal.
You.
That's right. What we didn't talk about from last week is the Torah portion that ends the book of Bamidbar, the book of Numbers, and the 2 Torah portions. And it really talked about dividing up the land of Israel, who the heads of the tribes will lead the Jewish people to the land of Israel, the dangers of leaving your enemies on the land of Israel, and the allotment, really, the apportionment and the borders of the land of Israel, if I didn't say that. So it was really the, should I say it again? The denouement of the.
You love that word.
I do like it. The climax of the book of Numbers,
which
is really
denouement and climax are not the same thing.
Isn't denouement like the
denouement is the after effect of the playing out? It's the climax.
Oh, darn it! There's so much to learn. There's so much to learn out there. There's so much knowledge. Wow, there's so many other things I want to talk to you about. I also want to tell you that I went to the Kinneret recently, and I got a chance to. You and I both have had little mini vacations in the last few days. Am I right?
Yes, thank God. I got away for Shabbat to the beach in Netanya. Super beautiful, very sweet town.
I love Netanya. I love Netanya. Netanya is one of the best. And I went up to the Kinneret and hung out on the shores of the Kinneret. And I think the reason I'm tying this in is because those Matot Masaya was really about the land of Israel Torah portions, and we speak about the land of Israel a lot. But a lot of our brothers and sisters, both the Jewish tribe and family, and both lovers of the land of Israel, are locked out of the country, and are really locked out for the foreseeable future.
It's been a long time, and yeah, I know my mom has finally canceled her ticket. She had a ticket for Pesach and couldn't come, and she rolled it over to Rosh Hashanah, thinking at the time we were like, of course he'll be able to come for Rosh Hashanah. Doesn't look like that's going to happen now. It's like really heartbreaking.
So, Rabbi Mike, a good friend of mine, Mayor Eisenman, who is one of the finest tour guides in the land.
Sure, he's famous.
He's famous, thank God. Maybe I've helped him a little bit. He called. He left me a WhatsApp message saying we have to help break this siege in which our American Jewish brother. It's not a siege, but the blockade. The blockade. That was the word.
Blockade, yeah.
The naval blockade, the air and naval blockade, which is stopping our brothers and sisters from being able to come home. And then I was in a bit of
a suggestion for how to do that.
Right, he didn't say that. I was in a feisty mood, and I sent him back a message, and I said to him, "Yes, you can believe it." I said to him, you know, maybe American Jews are locked out as a little lesson for them. I said, you know, sometimes we take the land for granted, and we think that it's always there for us, and we think that it's a playground where we do our fun stuff. There we eat the good food in the summer, and we go to the hotel and the beach and Hebron and Masada. But maybe we think of it as like not the real life, and then we go back home to the real life. And I said, maybe it's a little lesson for them.
Disneyland.
Right, religious Disneyland. And then he said back to me, and then another friend of mine named David Chazoni said to me, but our brothers and sisters are in a lot of pain right now. And we should recognize where they're at right now, both in how that country is doing, the divisiveness of that country, Corona that struck hard there, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. And I felt sheepish a little bit because I thought to myself, he's right. There's something like I should, just like I want them to have a little lesson about the land of Israel. We should have a lesson. I should have a lesson about caring more
about
for
the people of Israel.
Yeah.
And I'll add to that we want to be careful opening that lens of judgment, because the reality is that we're in more danger than they if we're going to say that the consequences of not loving and respecting the land of Israel are felt immediately. I mean, we're the ones that risk getting spit out of the land, right? I mean, our respect for the land, our respect for the Torah, our respect for one another, our obligation to create a just government and to be sovereign, these things are not necessarily being fulfilled. I mean, I wouldn't dismiss the accomplishments we made, God forbid. That's not my point. My point is that there's a wake up somewhere here. It's a wake up call. And if it's a wake up call to our brothers and sisters outside of Israel, come home, then to us, it's a wake up, like, be Israel. Like, don't just be a bunch of Jews in the land, or God forbid, a Hebrew speaking, nation like others, but be Israel. I was talking about this with my class last night, that the Rambam says that the conquest, this is Gemara, that the conquest of Yehoshua, the sanctity of the land was uprooted by the conquest of the Babylonians, because if might makes right, that works both ways. But the conquest of Ezra, which was done through acquisition, right? The Persian Empire granted this land to us, held out, but there's complications. And so we were speaking about, is there a third way? Because we've
wait. But you didn't say the end there, which is the conquest of Ezra through purchase did stick.
I said held out. It held out.
Yeah.
But it's still complicated if you look, because they didn't take all the land, and there's this status and that status. So we've done the Joshua style conquest, not to the degree that Joshua did, but we've done our fair bit. We've done the Ezra style conquest, whether it's in direct purchase or sort of international recognition. What's really going to make it permanent, in my eyes, is when we understand that really the only thing that gives us a hold on this land is the fulfillment of our obligations. We have a mission. This land is a platform for our mission in the world, and not conquest nor acquisition is enough to really bind us to this land. Only the fulfillment of our mission.
My rationale, a lot has been written, a lot has been thought about and written about the difference between the conquest of Joshua and the conquest of Ezra.
For sure.
And the real question is, wait a minute, wasn't Joshua coming with godly miracles and with awesome power, and Ezra came with kind of a poor group of misfits in Babylonia. So how is it that his
misfits and
sanctity-
ideologues? There was the core ideologues.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You can decide which one I am, which one you are.
Sometimes ideologues are misfits.
Yeah, well, usually they are.
Right.
Ideologue is not a nice term in most people's mouths.
Right. My explanation for that is actually maybe a little novel, which is that Joshua and company, they came, there was nothing else they could choose. They couldn't go back to the desert, and they couldn't go back to Egypt. They came there by force, and those that tried to reject it already got smashed.
Yep.
The Ezra people, they came by total choice. In fact, their brothers and sisters were like, what are you doing? And they're like, but we yearn for the land of Israel. And their brothers and sisters were like, but Babylon's working for us.
It's so good. It's so good.
Right. So when a Jew,
the sushi.
right, when a Jew chooses the land of Israel by choice, it's a completely different level than when you are forced to accept it. When you come here by choice, or when you run away from anti-Semitism, those are two different things. Oh, we'll take you if you run from anti-Semitism. Oh, you bet we will. But there's a difference between that and saying, I want this land. I'm coming home because I want to be close to God in this land. The other thing I want to tell you is that actually at the end of my beach day, we went to see the Rambam. The Rambam is buried in Tveria. It's so fabulous to visit the Rambam, but he's not there alone. There are many sages.
Heavy hitters. The small Kodesh is there. It's Rabbi. No, it's not Rabbi Yochanan. It's
Yochanan ben Zakkai.
Yeah, Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. That's what I thought it was. Remember, we went last year. That was last year.
Right. That's right. I was thinking about that. I was thinking if it wasn't Corona, we'd go on another road trip.
That road trip was a lot of fun.
That was fun. That was very special. That's right. And I went to the tomb of the Rambam, and I saw the Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, who is the one who chose Yavne over Jerusalem when the emperor, what is it, Titus? Is it Titus?
Vespasian. He spoke to
Vespasian, right.
It was his son that he left behind to conquer Jerusalem when he returned to Rome to take up the mantle of the purple.
Right. Now, a American progressive intellectual by the name of Peter Beinart has written an article titled Yavne, in which basically he argues just like this sage was able to choose a lesser Zionism because Rome had conquered it, so too Israel today can choose a lesser form of Zionism of an ethnic national state, instead make it a state of all its citizens, a binational state, which I've termed now Beinartistan. Yes.
Yeah. You got to copyright that.
I wrote it in my article, and I call it Beinartistan. Beinartistan, and I think, by the way, I can understand why he's so into binationalism, because it just sounds like his name. So it's binational Beinartistan, and he uses Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai as a kind of model. Which, by the way, I got to give intellectual kudos for at least formulating it in this interesting Jewish way. I mean.
Yes, and my reading of the article is that he didn't understand the Gemara at all.
Right.
Go ahead. At all. Well, don't forget that the Gemara itself raises the issue, Meisir Chachma. I forget exactly how the passage comes. It's like, well, he was a fool. Rabbi Yochanan should have asked Rome to go away, and it's Rabbi Akiva's voice that says it, that he lost his wisdom. But the reply is that Rabbi Yochanan understood there are situations in history in which the only thing you're going to get, tfasa merula tfasta. If you're going to try to grab too much, you're going to end up with nothing. So you had to, meitzil purta. You had to save a little bit because Rome was this ascendant power. But Rabbi Akiva is the one who understood that the flip side of that argument is that sometimes actually survival means going for broke, even if you fail. Because it's not just a matter of holding on to some little bit that you can survive with. It's a matter of what's your purpose. And despite the fact that people paint Rabbi Akiva's rebellion and the Bar Kochba rebellion as this tremendous failure and cause of suffering, I disagree vehemently. That the Bar Kochba revolt was the fire that fused the teachings of Yavne into a unit which actually could not only survive but thrive and serve as the seeds for the world in which we live today. So yeah, for him to, I found it infuriating. I mean, yes, true, he's a cut above the rest in the fact that at least he knows the Gemara, but I was tempted to do the whole even the devil can quote scripture thing on it, but
well,
that's borrowing tradition.
I liked everything you just said. The only thing I would just kind of change a little bit is to say, I don't think Jewish history records Rabbi Akiva as being a loser. Nobody ever said, Rabbi Akiva, you're the one who led to this thing. The opposite, like everybody understood that Rabbi Akiva is considered one of the greatest of all sages.
Yeah, but the Bar Kokhba rebellion was judged by the sages, and certainly for most of Jewish history up until the Zionist movement, to be an unmitigated disaster. And the big question of it was, how could Rabbi Akiva have been behind it all?
We still find those inspiring coins that say for the freedom of Jerusalem. And according to some, there's some disagreement on this I found, but according to some, Bar Kokhba actually did take back Jerusalem and hold it for 3 years, and restarted the temple sacrifices.
You know, I find one of the most moving things. Have you ever seen the Bar Kokhba letters? Mm-hmm. They were discovered in the caves not far from my house, where he sends messages. He's in the middle of a war with the largest concentration of legions that this region had ever seen. Right? And he's sending men and messengers saying, the army's very large. We need a lot of etrogim and lulavs and hadassah because Sukkot is here. That's right. It's just an incredible thing.
That's right. So any Chabadnikim, by the way, you left me a message today. We were back and forth on SMS, and then the message you sent me was the 770th. Was 770 in my messages. I said, this is a good sign. This is a good sign.
A closet Chabadnik, right?
That's right. So I mean, there you go. Get your lulav and etrogim ready for the armies of Israel. Anyway, it was wonderful to be at the tomb of the Rambam, and it also capped. That's what I love so much about vacationing in the land of Israel. Like you vacation, you swam in the beach, but then it's not like swimming in Florida where you're like, okay, I swam, that was good for my body. Like,
right.
You went to this holy place, and my wife just loves that kind of stuff. And it's like we finished it off with this beautiful like spiritual. We were there on a spiritual journey as well, and that's wonderful. Speaking of spiritual journeys, we're starting a recap, and we're starting the book of Deuteronomy. And by the way, I'm supposed to Eric the monk has corrected me yet again, and I'm supposed to say Pentateuch with a K at the end, not Pentateuch. I'm so dumb. Anyway,
he didn't say the "I'm so dumb" part.
No, he didn't say that. So we are starting the fifth.
Merit, I've begun Googling how do you pronounce. Anytime I have a question, I'm going to save myself the embarrassment of getting that email.
That's right. And and I love Latin terms and French terms. I love French political terms. I love those. What's that?
I said I like French fries.
I like. Please, if you have any political French terms or Latin terms that you like, please send them over. I used to love them in law school, though. They had these great, writ of certiorari and stuff like that. They had great stuff in law school of Latin terms. But in any case, the book of Deuteronomy, which is the second telling of the Torah, it's a different kind of book. It's written in a different voice. It's written in the voice of Moses. Yeah. And we started now. It's a 30-day speech that starts at the Jordan Jericho.
The next time you think the rabbi's servant is too long, just remember that. That's 30 days.
I just want to say a Hebrew joke to you now. The Gabbai says to the rabbi is giving a long speech, so the Gabbai comes up to him and says, "Zman Rabbeinu Tam." Zman Rabbeinu Tam. Okay, there you go.
I got it.
For those who get it, there you go. I'm even Yovan. No problem. In any case, we have a very special Torah portion, which is the beginning of a book which retells the story. Now, I actually have a big problem with this book. My problem is that during the whole summer, I find that I have a very hard time saying Divrei Torah. I have a very hard time getting up there if they ever ask me to speak somewhere. I have a very hard time speaking during this time because in the rest of the times I can find word connections and things and ideas. Here it's like, just listen to the man. Just, if you'd like, I'll read to you from the book, but there's nothing to add to it. Let me just read to you from what he says because the rabbi is speaking. Yeah. The rabbi is speaking. What do you want from me? You know what I mean? And that's something that is always troubling for me in this Torah portion. But one of the things that before we'll get to what you hinted at for a second, but there is one verse that I like very much that I wanted to speak with you. Here's the good news. Moses in chapter 1, verse 11, Moses says, Hashem Elokei Avotechem, the God, Hashem, the God of your forefathers, Yosef Alechem Kachem Elef Pamim. He should increase upon you 1,000 times. Vivarech etchem, and he should bless you, kasher dibarchem, as he has spoken to you. But then the next word is Eicha. Oh my God. How can I carry alone? Eicha esalavadi tarachem umasachem v'rivchem. On the one hand, you're blessed and you're awesome and you're huge and you're just a massive awesome people. And Hashem is blessing you. On the other hand, there's a lot of you.
That's a lot of Jews to deal with.
Yes. And there's a lot of contentiousness and dealing with you is not easy. That's what I think about our beloved state of Israel. On the one hand, it's like awesome. On the other hand, that's a handful.
A lot of Jews to deal with. I'm telling you, man. I don't envy anybody who's in charge here.
That's right. And when they ever, sometimes I think Netanyahu's greatest skill is just keeping the lid on the pot. That is the.
I mean, he might be slipping on that one right now.
That's right. That's right. The greatest skill here in Israel is to be able to manage the very vociferous forces that pull at this, the gravities that pull at this from different directions.
Well, apparently a good tactic is to give everyone a mana falafel and chips, and it just works.
Hey, falafel will do a lot for you. Falafel will do a lot. So tell me what you think about a lot, like you're blessed a lot, but you're also a big lot, and that's not easy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you kind of said the essential thing, which is that the intensity of the connection to the divine, which is the hallmark of Am Yisrael, is only a blessing if you have the kelim to receive it. It's only a blessing if you have the vessels to receive it. And the land of Israel is a primary vessel for that. The Torah is a primary vessel, but I think in particular there's an aspect of leadership, right? The Midrash says in many places that Moshe Rabbeinu shakal keneged kol Am Yisrael, that Moshe had the sort of a comparable weight, so to speak. He was equal to all of Am Yisrael. It's a strange notion, but here I think what it means is that Moshe was a real leader. He could serve, he could hold it, he could serve as a cleat to hold that, and to then take all this sort of very powerful disparate energy and weld it into a people, right? And I think that Moshe is pointing out is that, gosh, I've had many people say this, like your children are very big engines, right? It's like one of those expressions that they use in parenting classes, like it's a child with a very big engine. You're like, well, thank you very much. Can we throttle back on that? And like, oh, your kids are going to be, when they grow up, they're going to do amazing things or something. Like, well, really? Because right now they're killing each other, and that's what I hear in what Moshe is saying, is that the capacity of Am Yisrael is so astounding. At the same time, to have that kind of capacity without the proper vessels to hold and channel it is tremendously destructive and difficult. And he's been holding it for this long, and right now he's putting it down. We have to remember that that's the context here. He knows. It's been told in no uncertain terms. Oh, in Vayet Hanan, he'll have his last sort of attempt to overturn the decree. But he knows this is it. This is his parting speech. And anything he can teach us now is what he's got to teach us.
Right. And in some ways, there is a clue into the end of the Moses' leadership in this Torah portion with the retelling of the sin of the spies, which strangely, by the way, just got retold again last Parsha when the two tribes asked to stay on the east side of the River Jordan. So he says to them, hey, your forefathers, when they spied out the land, they came back with a negative report. They melted our hearts, and you're going in their way. You're melting the hearts of the people.
The same thing.
Right, and you have a bad culture. He literally says, Tabut Anashim Chaim. Right, you got bad culture going on. That word is used there. And here again is the retelling of the tale. But in a way, the retelling of the tale here is in order to say, it was really your idea to send the spies, and I got punished because of that.
Yeah,
maybe I went.
You go ahead. Sorry.
Maybe I was going to say maybe I went down the Aaron path, which instead of sticking to what I do best, which is capital T truth, I succumbed a little bit to you, and that led me to the road of that led to a certain demise.
Well, let's lay it out for people who may not be so familiar, because there's a couple of details here I think that not only teach us a very important lesson about Moshe Rabbeinu and leadership in general, but they open out for us what exactly the Book of Devarim is, because you already alluded to the fact that the Book of Devarim does not fit the mold, right? It's no longer a linear narrative. Like the linear narrative stops basically at the end of Bamidbar, and we now are going to retell, so it's a reflection. It's also in Moshe's voice, and there are many other ways in which it differs. But back in Bamidbar, at the beginning of Parshat Shalach, it was Shalach L'cha Anashim, and it sounds like God says to Moshe, "Yeah, send the people." And then Rashi there alludes to what happens, but here in our parsha, Moshe retells. He's now telling this back. Remember, if you were 19 years old at Sinai, you were there when the spies went, and you're alive now. Mm-hmm. Because the fact that whole generation passed away doesn't mean that there's no one there that remembers. If you were 18, 19, you probably remember fairly well what happened. This was a major life event. So he says, you all came to me, and you said, we want to send people, spy out the land. And Moshe says, I thought it was a good idea. Right? And I took them, and I sent them, etc. Right? But the missing piece is what Rashi fills in from the Midrash Tanhuma. That how did it all go down? How could it be that in Bamidbar it sounds like God says send them, and here when Moshe himself is retelling his own experience, he says, "You came to me and said, let's do it," and I said, "Good idea." So Rashi fills in the critical piece from the Midrash. He says, "What really happened? The people came to Moshe and said, we want to send spies." Now, up until now, every time anybody has come to Moshe with an innovative idea, what does Moshe do? What's he do? Everything. Bnot Tzlov say we should inherit. The people who are carrying the bones of Yosef say we don't want to miss out on Pesach. What does Moshe do?
He turns it back to God. He asks the question.
Hang on, let me check with the Eibishter. Like that's what I do. I'm Moshe. Here, the Midrash points out that for the first and perhaps only time, Moshe says, "God, what should I do?" And God says, "I don't know, Moshe. What are you gonna do?" Shlach lecha, says Rashi. You think it's a good idea? You send him. And that's what Moshe says. I thought it was a good idea, so I sent you. And then at the end of it, even more mysterious, right? It says, hang on, it's in line, I think it's like 37. 37, yeah. Gambi hitanaf Hashem b'gilalchem lemol gam ata lo tavot sham. Right. And God was also angry with me, sort of because of you on your behalf. And he said, you can't go into land. What? You ask every kid who's educated in the Israeli religious school system, and probably ones who are educated in the secular, some of them will tell you, why didn't Moshe go in the land? He hit the rock. That's not what Moshe says. Right. Moshe says you can go in the land because he was unable to do the right thing in this moment. So what wasn't he able to do? I think that goes back to our discussion about the capital T, little t. Moshe didn't understand fear. He did not understand fear. He did not understand how it was that these people who had been following the pillar of cloud by day and fire by night, they were surrounded by the clouds of glory, drinking the Miriam's well and manna, and they'd seen the splitting of the Red Sea in Sinai. How could they possibly still be afraid? He even says in the description that he says to them, don't be afraid. Al tichat. Al tirad al tichat. That's right. Right? That's like his milui, his sort of like throwaway line. Don't be afraid. Because fear is part of process. Because process lacks certainty. But Moshe, like you said, Moshe is not about process. Moshe sees the product. And the Eretz Yisrael is about the process. Right? And there's no certainty for any one generation. Yeah, there's a divine promise, for sure. That's where the certainty lies, but not to you and I. And this was Moshe's realization that he was not the one to lead us in. He belonged to the wilderness.
He belonged to that generation.
Yeah, but specifically to the wilderness, because the wilderness was a place of perfection. Clouds of glory, Miriam's well, manna, the echoes of Sinai. But here's not the daily life of uncertainty, of fear, of messy process, of failure and success.
I thought what you were going to say is he didn't understand the people's fear, and therefore he was not a proper leader for them all the way to lead them in, because he wasn't in mental touch with them.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Is he couldn't get it, and therefore he couldn't speak to them. Meaning, what should he have done? He should have said, "Whoa! Why do you guys want to send spies?" Right? And it's like, so we're afraid. He's like, guys, listen, I get it. But listen, there's a place for irrational fear and there's a place for courage. And of course, who are the people who show true courage? Yeshua and Kalev. They're the ones who say, yeah, we saw it all. We saw everything that you guys were afraid of. But God said, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Notice it's not that they weren't afraid. Because courage doesn't mean you're not afraid. That just mean you're ignorant, right? Courage means you're afraid and you're going to do it anyway because you believe it can happen.
Right. But they did also see the very same fears in a different way. They saw opportunity. They saw. Yeah. I mean, like look, like in my mind, like a great businessman has got those kind of eyes. He just looks at something. He sees a dirty, empty lot, a broken lot. He sees a skyscraper. Okay, people have that sometimes.
But no, what he doesn't see? He doesn't see the certainty of it. He sees the risk he's willing to take.
Right. That's right. That's the courage part.
That's where the courage part. Right. But Moshe saw the certainty, and that was where the inability to really relate to the people's fear of risk. It's Moshe Rabbeinu. It's like he lived in a world of certainty, like you said, which is powerful, beautiful, and we still sort of are illuminated by his light. But in the end of the day, it's not the world in which we live.
This year, I also saw a medrash that I never saw before, and it just says something so simple that I never heard before. The medrash was like, will your generation be condemned and the leader is going to go into the land of Israel? It just says it like that. It's like, could it be that you will graduate, but your whole flock won't? That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't. I saw it from straight in the midrash. I was very surprised at how simple that was, how simple and powerful it was.
I want to give you one more piece.
Yeah, go ahead.
Move on. If you look in Pasuk Chet, on the 8th verse, right? It says, "Rei natati lifnechem et haaretz." Right? It's in the past tense. Behold, I've already given you the land. Bo rushu et haaretz. So go and inherit it. Right? Come and inherit. Bo, right? So you look at Rashi, it says, Bo rushu. It says, Ein ma'arer b'davar. There's nobody that's going to argue with you on it. Einchem tzrichim l'milchama. And you wouldn't even have to fight. Ilu lo shalchu meraglim, lo yu tzrichim l'klei zayin. That if we hadn't sent the spies, we would have not even needed war. Mm-hmm. Why? Because, that was Moshe's level. You see, if we really weren't afraid, if we really understood that if God said we're going to inherit it as if it's already done, then we wouldn't have been drawn into this sort of like tactical error of the spies, and the whole story going forward would have been fundamentally different.
The power of faith is the power to change reality in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
We all have, by the way, internal fears about what we can do and what we can reach. It's very powerful to get in touch with those things and to say them and to know them outright, what you're afraid of. And I think that there are also forces out there today that use fear. Weaponizing narratives is really making people scared, making people doubt. There's a lot of forces like that in this world today. There's a lot of forces that want to make you afraid of what you know is true, afraid of your own possibilities, afraid of the land of Israel, afraid of standing up for yourself, afraid of standing up, by the way, for what you believe in politically or morally. You just can't say out there today what you believe because you're just being judged all the time, or you're going to be shamed, or you're going to be cancel culture. By the way, I had there was a video of me surfaced saying some stuff, and the it's been seen now like 30,000 times on Twitter or something like that.
Awesome.
Was it 30,000?
What were you saying?
I was talking about the Temple Mount, and I said that God does not. Well, the clip that they cut out, I said that I was talking about Hashem or the Hashemites, who should rule the Temple Mount, Hashem or the Hashemites.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah, I'm like, that's right. I'm like the Hashemites are a substitute for Hashem. Like, we want Hashem, not Hashem. Okay, and then I said that God says when you're in other people's lands, we're supposed to be liberal. Jews are liberal. We see the beauty and the truth and the rights of other people to express themselves. But when God brings us back to Jerusalem, he says, be liberal with me. Give me my small Jerusalem, my small land of Israel, my small Temple Mount to be free. And here's where I got in trouble: to be free of churches, of mosques, and of idolatry. That's right. So the anti-Israel crew, and I don't mean, I mean that literally, it was the anti-Israel crew, not the regular Jewish crew that is left or liberal, picked up on it, and they and they splashed out all over the internet, asking Newsweek, shouldn't you cancel this author?
That was the take.
Right, they went right for cancel culture, cancel culture.
And you of course said, well, I'm just quoting the Sephardic and Ashkenazic Rishonim.
Or how Josiah got rid of the idolatry.
No, but my point is that if you don't like the stance that the church and the mosque might be idolatrous, so then you might as well cancel my entire legal history.
That's right, and that's the thing. The thing is what I said was not. It wasn't really contentious. I was just saying what our Jewish law is.
No, it could be contentious.
It was contentious,
but it was not. The intent was not hateful or hurtful, nor was it just based in nothing. Meaning, one of the challenges that the cancel culture seeks to avoid is that we have to also look at the realities that have shaped us. You can't just decide in the year 2020. I had to check. That this is what morality is. This is what truth is, and anything which doesn't conform to this, they say the expression used to be, we are dwarves standing on the shoulders of giants. Now the perspective is we're giants standing on the shoulders of dwarves. And we're crushing them.
Right, we're crushing the past.
Which notice, by the way, means that our ability to see gets less.
Right, and also it's a complete haughtiness in simple terms. Do you really think that you're a giant, and do you really think that the past are nobodies? I'll never forget, by the way, one of my favorite stories, and I'm not sure, it could have been that our mutual friend Zev showed it to me. I'm not sure, but this is an amazing thing. You could look it up. That during the last tsunami in Japan, they kind of studied the area where the tsunami was hit. They found all these stones, these big monoliths, and it was written in Japanese 500 years ago. Do not build below this line.
Right.
Okay, you build below this line.
I think you mentioned it to me too.
It's in the New York Times. They have pictures of it. You just see these monoliths. Do not build. And I love it that the ancients send us a message. The ancients.
Well, I love it that we built a nuclear reactor below the line. So we didn't just build a house.
Right, that's right.
Come on, what could possibly go wrong with a nuclear reactor below the tsunami line?
Right, or who knows? Who could believe that the water would come up to this line? That's absurd. And the ancients are like, no, it comes up to here. It comes up to here. It's got something to tell us. And minimally, we should listen to the ancients, if not necessarily accept everything, but at least deal with it. By the way, I want to tell you that I found a fabulous app for Daf Yomi, and I'm back on Daf Yomi. And I want to tell you, and I know you know this, I want to say to anybody who wants to start studying Talmud, Gemara Shabbos is packed full of just great stuff, great questions. My favorite question yesterday was, if twins were born, one was born on Friday before Shabbos, and the other one was born already on Shabbos. And let's say so the guy had to do a brit milah on Shabbat and on Sunday, on Friday and on Sunday. But he switched between the two, and he did the milah for one kid one day early, and the other one he did it on Shabbos. That wasn't the right day, wasn't the 8th day. So what happens? I was like, this is the greatest question I ever heard in my life. This is the greatest. Just the contemplation of this knowledge. And I get some of my friends writing to me saying, like, why do you guys study Talmud? Why is that important? And I just tell them it's the heart of Judaism. It's the heart of Judaism to know, how the ancients really thought, how they understood things, and to get that transmission. I have a Christian friend who's always challenging me and asking me, why do you guys listen to the rabbis and stuff? And I just tell him Moses is the first rabbi. Moses is the rabbi, and he's passing it down through the generations. Rabbi Mike Feuer, I want everybody to come check out your website, which is jewishstory.co. When they go to that website, they will learn so much, including your fabulous. I haven't gotten a chance to listen to your new series. I'm very excited to listen to it because I am very excited to listen to. I listened to the whole 6 Day War series, but I'm excited to listen, especially about Rabbi Alkali, who's been always very interesting to me. So I want to know more about him. That's on your new series about the
Heralds of Zion.
Heralds of Zion. That's very exciting. And you also do great spiritual counseling, so people can check that out and connect with you through jewishstory.co. Is that correct?
Yeah. Also on Facebook, Rav Mike Feuer. Easy way to reach me.
There you go. That is fabulous. I want to also talk about some of our sponsors, which are, for example, HebronFund.org. Hebron Fund is the organization that it's powered by. Hebron is powered by Hebron Fund. and it keeps strengthening us there to protect the tombs of the fathers and mothers, to give security to that community, and to make sure that it's beautiful and ready for you to visit. Alavai, by the way, the tomb of the Rambam, beautiful site, so well kept up. I hope that Chevron will be like that as well. Our good friends at tchelet.com. You want to wear the True Blue Jew string? Here, I'm wearing some right now. There it is. You can see it. There you go. Yep. That's right. Show it proud. And it's coupon code Yishai. That's right. We are in the time of Geula. That there's a coupon code for you to get a deal on this ancient mitzvah come to life again. That's awesome. Wait, do I have my new? Oh yes, here it is. Check this out. Go to IsraelWines.com. Also coupon code Yishai. Get your wines from the land of Israel. Have it delivered to your home. It's going to be awesome for you, and put that into your bloodstream. The wine of Israel. It's that easy. IsraelWines.com. And help us keep broadcasting by please visiting YishaiFleisher.com/donate. And that's right. We are building Israel together. That's our theme, building Israel together and broadcasting Israel together. Rabbi Mike Feuer, again, I want to thank you and just mention that today's show is dedicated to Leah Goldman and her memory, a mutual friend of ours, a great lady who the world misses. And as you said, continues to be active from the worlds above. And also we want to wish the Pittenger family a big mazal tov for the birth of a new baby boy. Last thoughts, last comments from you.
Last comments that, Devarim is a book of reflection. Moshe looking back over everything and trying to learn the lessons. We're in the 9 days right now. It's a time that I think we're called to a very similar reflection, be it in the immediate circumstances of our life, the current phase of our people, or over the arc of the last 2,000 years. Don't miss the opportunity, people, as we begin the book of Devarim, to take the time to retell our stories in a way in which is not only going to make us healthy in the present, but it's going to orient us positively for the future.
Amen. Very good. And that dovetails perfectly also with both Rosh Chodesh Av, Tisha B'Av, but also this COVID crisis period that we're living in. A great time to reflect and to think deep, and to also, I think, muster up the courage that when we're breaking out of this jail, we're going big, like Joseph. We're going big. We're going all the way up from this to something much, much bigger. Shaul asks, on the Facebook, he says, you mentioned about Daf Yomi app, but you didn't mention what app it is. And the app's name is Portal Daf Hayomi, but it's got plenty of English language lessons as well. It's got like 100 different classes every day on the Daf Yomi. Portal Daf Yomi, well-made app. With also, you can click a button, you'll see the page of the Talmud. Fabulous. Everything is worked out. Technology is working with us. Rabbi Mike Feuer, thank you again for being with us, and a Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
God bless you guys wherever you are. Rabbi Mike, thanks again. More great stuff is on the way. I want to say shalom to all the good folks that are with us from all over the world, including Julie from New York, and Shaul and Lou, my good friend, and Amy, and Selwyn and Noel, and everybody else that's out there all around the world. Lots of love and lots of blessings from the land of blessings. Shalom, and see you soon. Oh yeah, and write me an email, Yishai@YishaiFleisher.com or Yishai@thelandofisrael.com. Lots of love. Shalom.
The Land of Israel Network is your connection to Israel and the Jewish world. Listen to our show hosts, Ari Abramowitz, Jeremy Gimpel, Eve Harrow, Josh Haston, Shlomo Katz, Mike Feuer, Yishai Fleisher, and more. Keeping you up to date on news, politics, and spirituality. That's the